It was a wet, cold day, March 2016. And me and my girlfriend, we are living in an apartment in the city in the country of Netherlands. And I wanted to go out for a run. But it was cold and windy and rainy. But still, I wanted to go out because I had a brand new sport watch by the brand of Garmin. And the promise was that it would pick up my GPS way faster than previous models. So I went out, did some warming up, some stretching, and then my watch did not work. So I went back, my girlfriend, she's sitting at the couch, and she looked at me and said, "Oh, that's quick." Well, what I answered and what happens next and what that has to do with innovation, you will find out later. So what are the most important steps in innovation? Well, after this video, you know better what works in each step, which pitfalls to avoid, and also how to innovate faster. Comment, like and subscribe. If you have a remark or a question, please let me know and also give me a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to my channel. So question for you. What do you think is the biggest barrier to innovation? Please leave a comment down below. Well, my name is Joosten. I'm a futurist, a keynote speaker and an innovation researcher. And my main area of expertise are the future, technology and innovation. And I do that by giving keynotes, by also doing workshops and consultancy. And if you want to hire me, please send me a message. So what's a helpful way to look at innovation? So after this video, you know how innovation works with the help of my model. And it's called the 5I model. And I go through each of all these steps. We'll start with identification, then inventarization, ideation, iteration and implementation. And if you're wondering what is innovation? Well, innovation is always about new things, new products, new services, new business models. But it's also about adding value. So it could be making profit, also reducing costs, maybe also environmental value. And it's also something that I like to stress, that it's a process. So you have input, something's happening, and then you have an output. And that process, that's also why I think innovation really works really well with my model. So I mentioned some elements of innovation about about value and also about a process. Well, at the end of the video, I will share a definition I gave while I gave a guest lecture at the University of Eindhoven. So where do you start? Well, after this part, you will know a crucial step that is often forgotten. And the first step is identification. So as an organization that you know what you want, how much money, how much time, how much energy you like to invest, it's a sort of your thesis. So your innovation strategy has to fit within your whole strategy and also your portfolio. And that of course really depends also on the market dynamics where you're in. So to give you a practical example, a recent client of mine in the Netherlands, it was a healthcare institution, and their innovation strategy is that they want to be first follower. So I think that's really great. Not that they're first follower per se, but that at least they have a clear strategy. What do they want with innovation? And in their case, they say, no, we don't want to be trying all kinds of new things, really be at the front of the line. But if we see something happening around us in other organizations, we are the first to follow and also implement it in our own organization. So one really helpful method is to look at your portfolio, that you see how many products and how many products do we have or services, and what are markets we serve. And then you can also look at what are new markets and also new type of customers. And one really good baseline for this exercise is in the article Managing Your Innovation Portfolio by Nagy and Toef. So this is the model by Managing Your Innovation Portfolio. So here on the y-axis, on this axis you have current, and it's about markets, current markets, related, and then new. And here you have products and services. And their current incremental, so that means small changes, and also new. And they state, well, here you have like a sort of this is your current market and current products. And then here you have like the related areas, and let's make this blue. And they call this the transformational part. And they state, well, you can use this to look at your portfolio, and then you think, okay, how can it help also to allocate our resources, our people? Well, their advice is 70% over here, and 20% over here, and 10% over here. So I know that's really difficult in your day-to-day minutiae. Probably this is 90 or something, but their advice is to keep it at 70. So you also allocate time, energy, and resources to the yellow part, the related incremental changes, and also related market, and also to the new product services, and also to the new market. So it's really handy model, I think. So how do you know what to innovate? Well, after this part, you know even better who to involve, and also a really smart tip, just how to do that. And this is a step of inventorization. So that you really look at what are our current developments, what are also some trends, so you can hire futurists for that. But also to really pinpoint what are our customer needs. So that's why it's really important within innovation, also in this step of inventorization, to really involve the people from the front line. So your customer reps, the maintenance operators, service providers. And that's really, really important. I will get back to this later. And also something that helps within this step is to work with multidisciplinary teams, so that your different disciplines, they meet each other in a team, and that way they interact, come up with new ideas, because they're also they're opening up their own world of thinking, because they meet people from other disciplines, other professions. So that's also the reason that many technology companies, they also like to work with open spaces where people can mingle, interact, and come up with new ideas. And I also came across this quote in an article. It's by Steve Jobs, where he stated, so we designed the building of Apple to make people get out of their offices and mingle in the central atrium with people they might not otherwise see. And the idea of Jobs and also the other directors, the leadership team of Apple, is that then they can really have that creative energy bubbling, because people meet from different backgrounds, and then they can make new connections which lead to serendipity. That is that you get ideas while you were not looking for that idea in the first place. Also a really interesting concept, by the way. So it's really important to have a lot of contact with your customers or users. And Ash Murray calls it, you have two steps. First, you have a solution to a problem. That's the first fit. But then you also have to look if your solution is also a market fit, so that customers really want your solution. So how do you come up with ideas? Well, after this part, you have two concrete tips on how to come up with better ideas in your organization. And this is a step of ideation. So here we go brainstorming, co-creating with customers and clients. And there are really two concrete tips in this step. And the first piece of advice is that you have to combine. And I like to refer the work of scholar He-Jin Yoon, and she looked at all the patterns between 1790 and 2010. And until the 1870, so the first part, it was a lot of new things that she found out in these patents. But after that year, so after 1890, it's more about combination of things, combining technology. And she states it became more modular, like IKEA furniture, which is really lovely metaphor, I think. And the second type of advice, I like to refer to the work of Duncan Wardle. He was head of innovation for Disney for a long time. And he told they wanted to stimulate creativity and innovation within Disney. So they tried four things. The first one, they asked an expert consulting firm, and Wardle stated, well, they did a project that worked, but then they left and then it collapsed again. Second thing they tried, you have a creative department. But because all the other people thought, well, I'm not in that department, so apparently I'm not creative. So that also did not work. And the first thing they tried, they had a program where they invited young startups to work with Disney, but that did really not change their culture because they only could reach like 2% of their people. And the third thing that really worked was a toolkit. So they made a set of tools for everyone, which makes creativity easy, tangible, and fun. And this is also where I talked about earlier, that you really have to involve everybody. So it's not like you have an innovation team, that's also important, or innovation department, but you really want to involve everybody because everybody could have a good idea which can lead to your new breakthrough innovation. So you have an idea, then what? Well, after this step, you learn that it's about doing and learning quickly using a very fascinating experiment with consultants and also with preschoolers. And this step is about iteration. So iteration is about experiments, about testing. So earlier you looked at you have to test if your solution fits a certain problem and also that it fits the needs of the market. But in this phase you also test the channel, the customer relationship, how does it change your partnerships, your costs, your revenue models, etc. So it's really about testing a lot of things, all the elements that are involved within your new products or service or business model. And the lesson is from Wujec. He landed a concept from Skilman, and it was a really simple exercise for small teams. So you have to build the highest possible tower on a tabletop in 18 minutes with 20 pieces of spaghetti, 1 meter of tape, 1 meter of rope, and a marshmallow. And the only restriction was that the tower had to stand still for 3 seconds after it was finished, and that the marshmallow should be on top. But Wujec, he took that marshmallow challenge by Skilman and gave it to a wide variety of groups because he was curious. And what's really funny is that business students, they scored the worst, and lawyers, they were also below average. The best were architects and engineers, luckily. But just below that, there were like the preschoolers. And you think, why preschoolers? Well, 2 reasons. The first is that they do not play status games. So they're just like business school students will first try to find out who's the leader. And the second, I think is more important, also relates to this step of iteration, is that preschoolers, they just start building directly when they get all the pieces. While the adults in the room, they first are going to think about and talk about what they do. And then 1 minute before the 18 minutes are done, they say, oh, well, let's build. And students, preschoolers, they just build. Oh, it fails. Now, then we know why it failed. And then we build new things. So it's about building, receiving feedback, know what works, what doesn't work, and then start again. That's really important in this step of iteration. So how do you make innovations a lasting success? Well, after this, you know what it means for your employees and also a powerful method to boost your innovation culture. And this is about implementation. So here you have to integrate the innovation within your business and update your portfolio. And one really important element from the book Long Shots is that you also have different people in your organization. So for the first part of the creative part, you have like the artists. That was what he states in the book Long Shots. And then there's a relay of the idea to the so-called soldiers. They are really good in the franchise, in the upskill, and the implementation. And what's really important is that you appreciate them equally and that they relay their idea from one to the next. So you really have different skill sets for different phases. And you don't want the crazy innovators also to working on the upskill and the implementation. That's the main message of this part. So like I mentioned, what's the biggest challenge concerning innovation? Well, in 2018, 300 business leaders were asked about the biggest barriers to innovation within their companies. And the top 2 responses, each cited about a majority of the respondents, were politics and cultural issues. So I'm curious if that's also the answer you gave. If you have another answer, please let me know. If it's culture or politics, please type a 1 in the comment so I know you're also familiar with this type of barrier. So concerning culture, what can you do? Well, I'm going to show you a simple method I like to use in brainstorming. And I used it recently at a keynote I did at a large government organization. And the exercise we did was that we worked in pairs, and one of them had to come up with an idea to organize a birthday party. and they had a budget of $100,000 or euros. And the first person A is going to explain the idea. Oh, we're going to rent a zoo and we're going to have cocktails there. And the other one has to answer, no, because I don't like the zoo. And then the other one gets to answer, to come up with a new idea, etc., etc. And then we're going to switch up. And then the other person is going to tell his or her idea of a birthday party with a budget of $100,000 or euros. And then the other one is not going to say no because, but he or she is going to say yes and. And I also noticed in the room there's more energy, more laughter, more enthusiasm. So in this part of brainstorming, if you want to come up with ideas, you have to have the expansive view. So one assignment I give for these kinds of brainstorms or workshops is to only answer yes and. So then you come up with new ideas. And another benefit is that the ideas are often also more collective because you are going to build on each other's ideas. And way later you can have criteria and see which ideas you're going to develop. But at this stage it's really powerful to work with yes and. So like I promised, what is innovation? Well, at the university we're going to look, I gave a guest lecture and this is part of my lecture. And I like to use this definition by Professor Paul Iske. He states, innovation is a process of creating value by using knowledge and other resources in a way that has not been done before. So there are a couple of items in this definition I like to emphasize. So he states it's a process. So innovation is not a thing, but it's a process where you think you have inputs, then something happens and then it leads to outputs. So that's one important element of innovation. And also something I like to emphasize is that it's about creating value. So I sometimes got asked a question like, Peter, what's the difference between an invention and innovation? And for me, the distinction lies within the creating of value. So you can have an invention, like come up with new ideas. Also here, of course, at the TU Eindhoven. But when it actually adds value, it can be a financial value, it can also be a benefit for the planet or other things, then you talk about innovation. And also, one thing is about the use of knowledge and other resources. So innovation is also closely related to learning organization. How do you have these knowledge inside your team or inside your organization? Or do you have to cooperate with other companies, maybe with customers, maybe also with knowledge institutions like universities? So these are three important elements if we talk about innovation. It's about doing things that have not been done before. It's about creating value, it's a process, and it's about using knowledge and other resources. So get back to my story. I came back in the room and I told her what happened. My GPS was not working, so I did not go out for a run. My girlfriend looked at me and she said, you really should do something with that. And that's where I started a blog about wearable technology. And then I wrote an article like what would happen if patients would also be using more wearable technology and sharing their data. And that was picked up by a great hospital. And then they asked me to deliver a keynote. And that's where it all started for me. And now I'm not doing talks about wearable technology. I'm more into technology and innovation and futures like you are aware of. But I like to stress this story because it's the origin of my company. And also it relates to this model I just shared with you, because there was a solution and a problem fit, but there was also market fit. There was also a need in the market for people to give insights, to deliver insights and advice on these things like wearable technology in the future of, in this case, healthcare. So again, please leave a comment. What do you think is the biggest barrier to innovation? Leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching If you want to hire me for a keynote presentation, consultancy or webinar, please send me a message. Comment, like and subscribe. If you have a remark or question, let me know. And also give me a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to my channel. So then we go to the North Pole and then we invite reindeers. Oh yes, and we're going to ask Santa to house a Disney to do the DJing. Yes, and well, it's really nice also if you do it with yourself.